healthcare customers, I'm Chef Don Hensley, and this is Martin Brothers Chef to Chef Cooking Series. Today we're going to be cooking big pieces of meat, roasting and braising. Let's get started. Today we're going to braise off a beautiful piece of gooseneck round. It's got a nice fat cap on the top. The underside, you can see this is a lot of connective tissue. There's sinew and things like that. We probably won't take any of that off. We'll let it cook off. Beautiful piece of meat here. What we're going to do is we're going to take some of our McCormick steak seasoning, give it a nice sear, add some mirepoix, carrots, onions, celery, and a little bit of fat to get a nice sear on that piece of meat. So, let's go ahead and try to get this out of the bag. Now let's be neat and clean about it. Flip it over. Then I like to cut a slit all the way down the plastic, facing your knife up and away from you so it's safe. Just like that. Now, we'll turn it over, leaving it in the plastic, right into the pan, and pull back, not having any blood, any juices splash all over. Neat, clean, contained. Exactly the way we want it. Discard that wrapper, and let's get some seasoning on top of this. Now let's make sure we get a nice good coating. Let's not go overboard, but we do want to make sure that we can see it all over the top. Let's lay down some fat to a hot flat top. Again, we're looking for about 400 degrees. We want to see that smoke. We want to hear that sizzle. Bring your gooseneck over. Fat side down first. The seasoned side. Now we're going to allow that fat to cook down on that cap. Get some nice caramelization. Look at that smoke. Looks a little scary, but I tell you what, that's creating some flavor. You see all the blood and the juices that came off? I want to pull some of this up. Move that pan out of the way there. And show you this. See? If we weren't to sear that, no good. That's what we would get. We want to get rid of that. And that's why we sear it, so we make sure we don't have that in the finished cooking, in the finished product. Let that get a good sear. Now we could be using an inside round, a bottom round, any piece of meat that is large and has a lot of connective tissue and needs a long cooking time to be tender. Now I like to use forks when I'm dealing with a big piece of meat. It's just so heavy and cumbersome. I want to make sure I'm not going to drop it. Give it a turn. Look at that caramelization and that crust. That's really going to give us a lot of flavor. We've got a clean pan. We're going to go with the fat cap facing up so that the fat can melt down into the meat while it bakes, moisturizing it. Time to add our mirepoix. Our aromatic vegetables are going to add a lot of flavor. I've already peeled the carrots, and if you note, I'm going to cut these vegetables large, larger than you might otherwise see in a recipe, because we're not actually going to serve them to the guest. They're only going to act to add flavor to our roasted meat. Get rid of the ends. The ends of carrots, the peels from onions, and the leaves from celery are very bitter. We do not want to use those. So throw our carrots in there, taking our washed, clean celery, again cutting it into larger pieces. And we cut it larger because we have a large piece of meat, so it's going to be a longer cooking time. The longer the cooking time, the larger you leave the vegetables. Again, these are our aromatic vegetables. They're going to add a lot of flavor, depth, and body to the flavor of our broth and to our meat as it cooks. Now make sure you're using the letter C cutting method. See how I keep my hand in the letter C, thumb in the back, front fingers as a guide. Making sure all appendages and my digits are out of the way of that sharp blade. Now you'll see that there was quite a bit more onion than there was celery and carrot. Mirepoix is 50% onion, 25% carrot, 25% celery. A standard mix. Now we've got our onions cut. Let's add them to the pan all the way around. There we go. Now when it comes to meat cookery, making sure you're cooking to temp, use a thermometer, use a recipe. Make sure you're using all the tools available to you. One great tool that we have available to you is our meat cookery chart. Take a look. It gives you all the necessary information you need to make sure you're cooking your meats to the right temperature with the right method. I tell you what, this is going to be fantastic. We've got that nice caramelization, that nice sear, and we've got a nice low sodium broth that we're going to be adding to our braised gooseneck round. Again, we're going to be cooking low and slow. Been in there quite a while. We've had that meat in there for about 5 hours. Now, one thing we're looking for, we want it to be fork tender, but we don't want it to be so tender it's going to fall apart. See how I can still put a knife through it? That's what we're looking for. I want to cut lengthwise with the grain, and then for service across the grain. See how I'm cutting into smaller segments? That's easier to cut and easier to plate up when it comes to service time. Now, also remember to cut thin against the grain. That is going to make it easy on the tooth, easy to chew. Easy for your residents, guests, even if you're in a steakhouse, this is how you want to cut your meat. If you've ever been in a buffet line, you've seen the carver at the end of the table, he's using this method. Now, if you can see, I'm kind of going in a back and forth motion, a little bit wider on the end and thin on the inside. If you have a really large piece of meat, that's a great cutting method to control the size and the portion. Now let's take this beautiful braised gooseneck round. Lay some of these slices out. This looks delicious. Add this to some of our great side dishes. You've got one heck of a meal. So we're just going to do a little presentation with this. We're going to throw it on a little white plate. Let's grab some parsley and put on there. Remember, this cooking method applies to all larger pieces of meat with needing a long cooking time with a lot of connective tissue. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm Chef Don. We'll see you next time. We hope you enjoy our cooking tips, techniques, and recipes here at Martin Brothers. For any questions and additional recipes, visit www.martinsnet.com.